Welcome, everyone. Welcome. We'll be starting in just a few seconds. So greetings. My name is Dr. Erlene Avalon, and I am director of the Lowell Institute School here at the College of Professional Studies. The Lowell Institute School has championed the transformational power of education based on the belief that learning enhances knowledge, develops practical skills, creates new career paths, and really fosters economic stability for families. The Lowell Institute School continues to honor the Lowell family's legacy. It adapts to the changing needs of each era, providing education that prepares students for both life and work. Here at the College of Professional Studies, LIS students pursue 11 major STEM fields, and they include advanced manufacturing, analytics, biological sciences, biotech, health science, healthcare administration, information technology, mechatronics, project management, psychology, and last but not least, digital communications and media. Today, we're going to have a wonderful discussion on the field of biotechnology and biological sciences. And I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Dr. Dawn Kochanek, to facilitate today's discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Arlene, for that wonderful introduction. Excuse my voice, everybody. I'm feeling a little under the weather, but I'm happy to be here. I am the program lead for biotechnology and biological sciences in the College of Professional Studies. With that being said, let me just jump right in and introduce our speakers. We have Amanda Culliton coming from Cytiva, and we have Thomas Kivela coming from Sartorius, and we have Tayaba Thompson coming from Takeda. And I'd like to thank all three of you for being with us for this hour. And I'm really excited to hear what you have to tell us about your various positions in industry. So I've put together a list of questions, and I would love to just kind of ask, and we can go one by one. We can go, we can jump in order, or you can, whoever wants to field the question first, you can jump in. That would be great. The first question that I have is, I would love for you to tell us about your current positions at your company and tell us kind of what your typical day-to-day responsibilities are. Does anybody like to volunteer to go first?
I can go first, Dawn. So my name is Amanda Culliton. I work for Cytiva, and my role currently is Senior Manager, Program and Project Management for our Enterprise Solutions Product Management team. And that role means that I am responsible for the project management of all of the initiatives for our Enterprise Solutions Product Management team. So anything that our team is doing to sustain and develop our Flex Factory and QBO offerings. So day to day, it's a lot of meetings, it's a lot of strategy, it's a lot of project management, tracking down where people are on their processing. So that's my role currently at Cytiva.
I can go next. So I sit in external business management, and we have internal as well as external stakeholders. So Cytiva is one of the companies that we work with, and so I'm handling the contracts and transaction side. I deal with their procurement team, our legal team, as well as our scientists, basically, to tell them how to establish contracts and what's acceptable, what's not. Day to day, I would say it's a lot of meetings, it's a lot of reading of the contracts and making sure everything is in place.
All right, so I'm Tom Kivela. I work at Sartorius. My official title is Single-Use Technology Expert. Day to day, what I do is I work with customers to help them implement single-use technologies. So on a day-to-day basis, I actually report into a sales organization. So I go in with the account manager, kind of support how to implement single use in different processes, introduce new Sartorius technologies to them. It's, working with them to design single-use assemblies, working with bringing in certain, Sartorius employees and kind of managing that project, as it moves forward from design to manufacturing and to even implementation at the customer site.
Excellent. Thank you, everybody. All right. And I have a kind of a question that I think a lot of students always want to know. And that is, can you tell us, how did you land your first job in industry? Was it through somebody you knew, or was it just through a cold resume? How did you land your first position? And what was your first position?
So I'll go first. So my first position was a media prep technician at Millipore. I landed the job through a career fair. I graduated college and I was just out kind of pounding the pavement, so to speak, and going to whatever career fair I could go to and introduce myself and, just throw my resume around as much as I could. And fortunately, I got a phone call from Millipore and had an interview and, came in from that way.
Thomas, it's really interesting because my first position was also with Millipore Sigma. So at that time, I was a student at Northeastern, and I was doing the bachelor's and master's +1 program. And I applied to this internship during the summer internship process that was opened up. It was a fellowship in the CEO's office. And I did not know it was in the CEO's office until I showed up for the first day because they kept it under wraps. And they're like, yeah, you have the meeting with the CEO in about like 15 minutes. And I thought it was just like he was greeting all the interns. And I walk into the room with the other person who was also on the project. And he's like, yeah, so this is the layout of the project. This is the budget you have. This is your deliverable. And I'm like, okay, I did not know this was in the CEO's office. So the stakes immediately were that high. So that was a really good experience. It kind of taught me when you're thrown in the deep end, how you learn. Made a lot of contacts there, but my subsequent positions, most of them have been through internal referrals. So I would say that networking is so very important, especially as you're a student. Go out into career fairs, and there's also the NEPDA organization, which I think comes to Northeastern, and they do an annual meet there. And there are so many different organizations that you can be part of, and you can go and ask questions to professionals to determine what pathway you want to take. So I would say get as much information upfront as you can. And we love talking to students and, telling them. One of the questions that I used to ask everybody actually was like, how did you get where you were? So, and I learned so much from all the different stories that were given to me by professionals while I was a student.
So I'll answer next on that one. So my first job, actually, I got that job through a temp agency. So I graduated mid-year, like at the December timeframe, and I was nervous that out of cycle I wouldn't be able to just find a job through the normal throw out your resume. So I reached out to a temp agency, and they did send me to a podiatrist office for one day, and I had told them that my background was in biology and I wanted to work in the biotech field, and so they found me a role at a very small company in Hopkinton, and I was a temp there, started as an admin, and was very fortunate to have a mentor there who taught me a lot about project management and sales support and contract management, and I was hired full-time there. And then after that, it was really through networking that my career grew from that point.
Thank you. That actually leads right into my next kind of question, which Tayaba, you kind of touched on, and that is, what advice would you give to students or recent graduates about networking and building professional relationships? I know, Amanda, you had once told me about this really neat club called the Toastmasters. Can you tell us more about that again, and can anybody touch up, and follow up on what advice you'd give for networking further than you did?
Sure. I know that networking is something everybody tells you need to network. It is so critical, though. It really is how you navigate your career, who you know, how you get that edge in to all of your opportunities. And currently, I I call them extracurriculars. I have a couple of clubs that I am a part of in my corporate life that are tremendously helpful for networking. One is Toastmasters. So Toastmasters, if you're not familiar with it, it's an international organization to help you develop your public speaking. So there's a program, they have a website and pathways where you have projects to write certain speeches, and then the meetings are pretty formal with different roles for the meeting, and they do table topics where you also practice your impromptu speaking. It's a great way to collaborate with either other people within your org, or depending on the club that you belong to, it could be across other businesses as well. So I encourage you to look into the extracurriculars. I'm also one of the co-leads of our corporate women's network, which is another phenomenal way to network because you're networking across your whole business with other strong women who are motivated and looking to grow their career. So you'll learn from each other and build your network that way too.
And I'll follow up with that. Networking is something you start as a student and it never stops. So even when you have a career going, you still continue to build your network, because once you get tired of the position that you're in and you're looking for your next role, it really helps to have people in the next role that you're looking for and speaking with them. It's like you can so I recently actually did that. I'll share. So I'm looking for a next role, and I reached out to these people that I work with in procurement, and I was like, hey, I'm kind of tired, doing contracts. I've learned a lot, but I'm looking to learn more. And if you have a position open, let me know. And the minute they had a position open, they reached out and was like, can you please apply to this? So I think it's very important that besides being hardworking, that you start a network as a student, because that's where you'll make mistakes. You'll learn how to talk to people. You will learn what kind of questions you want to ask and how you're going to build that relationship. So as a student, you build that, and as a professional, you continue to enhance your skills in networking. So networking is something that's never going to stop in your life.
Yeah. Yeah, and I could just add on maybe a minor comment, just as you move on, from education to career to different career, like take time to, keep in contact with those networks. That way, when you reach out to them for something, it doesn't seem so awkward, but, and just stay in contact, I think is one of the biggest things you can, where it's really important to do. And also it is recognize that it can be a very small industry as well. So, you want to watch out who you don't want to burn bridges, right? I can tell you that the current president of Sartorius North America I have kind of a dotted line to him right now on a project that I'm working on. And 22 years ago, he was my manager at Millipore. So, and that was the third place I worked at with him. So it's very important to maintain those relationships and keep them in good standing, I think.
These are all excellent points. Thank you, everybody. Another question that students kind of often ask for when we have members of industry come join us is, did you receive any additional education post your bachelor's for where you're at? Did you have any certifications? Did you go through any additional courses? I know, Tayaba, you mentioned you were in the +1 if you got the master's degree. So you've all told us your positions and what you do, but could you tell us if you've received any education post-bachelor's?
Yeah, I'm actually working on my master's degree right now at Northeastern. I'm doing my MBA in artificial intelligence because that was the new concentration that was added. And I was like, right now, currently in the industry, we are all trying to adopt AI tools and bring them into our workflows. Whether you are, on this lab sciences side, whether you're in contracts, AI is such a big deal right now. So for me, MBA was a logical next step because I do have a master's degree in science and biotechnology. But one of the things I saw in the industry when I entered was there is a gap between the business side and the science side. So to bring those two together, you need a bridge. And I love functioning as that bridge between the two sides. So MBA was the logical next step for me. And I think it's going to differ from person to person depending on what they want to do. But I would say right now, having a master's degree does make you stand out. But how much or how in the future, how much that's going to be true, like our industry changes on a weekly basis based on the requirements. But having um, that higher ed degree is definitely a plus.
For me, my post my bachelor's, I have my PMP certification. So I did go for project management classes and got my PMP certification. I think if you are in a project management role, I think that certification is becoming more and more desired. So it's definitely something that you can obtain more simply than an MBA or a master's. So I'd recommend you go for it if you're going to be in a project management role.
I can just interject and ask you both. Did your companies help pay for that education?
For me, yes, my PMP coursework and the test itself was covered by my employer.
For me, yes, Takeda does sponsor tuition reimbursement, but I actually received full scholarship for all of my degrees from Northeastern. So Northeastern's been really good to me.
And then I'll just chime in. So I did recently actually complete my MBA, and it was a focus in project management, but then MBA as well. So, in those approximately 20 years after I graduated college, so you never quite stop learning,
Absolutely, that's a great point. So kind of following up on this, so obviously we're all here because we see the value in education, but there's also value in other things like soft skills. And obviously through our education, we'll learn technical skills. But could you tell me what you think, maybe some soft skills that you think are kind of essential for success in the industry?
I can start with that. So soft skills, first, we need to check the ego. You're going to be given feedback and you need to be able to absorb the critique and improve your skills. Also, there are difficult personalities and we just need to learn how to manage that because your boss could be terrible at communication. So you need to improve your communication and you'll come across different people there. Like so far, I've been so lucky that my bosses have been great at trying to promote us and providing us with the skills, but within the business world you will come across difficult personalities, so you need to learn how to manage conflicts. One of the things I often see people do is they shut down when there's a problem, and so what I've done is whenever you feel like something is going to escalate, immediately let your manager know. So there are key skills that you'll pick up as you go along, but number one is communication. And I'll let Amanda and Thomas chime in and see what they have to say.
I'll say, your soft skills are critical. There's a lot of smart people in the industry, so you're not going to get by just on your skills and your knowledge. You need to also be, someone people want to work with. And I think one of the things that helps me is try to take emotion out of it. If I get an email or someone reaches out to me and I have an emotional response, I kind of take a minute and wait till I'm in a better state of mind to reply, because most of the time people aren't trying to upset you or anything. It's your own personal stakes and your own personal investment in your job and how much you care that you get emotionally involved, and you need to kind of take a step back and reframe it before you respond. I would say that's probably a lesson that I learned early in my career, thankfully, and I try not to have an emotional response to, especially when it's in writing. I don't know, Tom, if you have anything to add on that.
I think you guys kind of touched on it. I think people skills are definitely critical. you're here to do a job, and so are other people. And, it's like a lot of my experience comes with project management, and with project management comes with, managing personalities. And we all have a goal to get somewhere. And as a project manager, you need to figure out how to get that person to focus and move forward, right? So you need to kind of learn different, interaction styles of how to work with people, because not everyone is going to respond to the same way, right? So you need to kind of figure out each person and, figure out how to work with them. So I think that it's a tricky situation sometimes, but I think it's definitely required.
These are all excellent. Thank you guys for your honesty here. Let's see, what's the next question that I have? Oh, yeah. It's kind of like a more of a maybe a personal one, but have there been any pivotal moments or opportunities that you think have shaped your career path? I mean, I can tell you that from my perspective, if Amanda hadn't told me about a summer internship at Millennium Pharmaceuticals 20 years ago, I don't think I would be sitting where I am. So I have to thank Amanda because she made a very pivotal moment in my trajectory and my career. And what about everybody else? Tell me something that you think maybe had changed your direction or woke up a path that you didn't quite see.
I can start. So my internship at Milpar Sigma, I think working with the CEO, I had insights into business. And it was actually interesting because I was at Northeastern at the time for one of my master's classes that was 14 weeks long. I actually ended up sitting down with their single-use team at Milpar Sigma, and they walked me through basically my whole coursework within an hour and a half. So I remember coming back at that time. Liz Ulick was the director for the biotech program, and talking to her, I was like, I learned everything in an hour for this course. So I think that was very pivotal for me as to how much information is available and how to learn. Like, what are we actually learning in school? How to best, gain the knowledge and skills I need to advance. And I think that, like, every time anybody asks me that question, like, what was your pivotal moment, or like, what was when you were in a difficult situation, I was like, that's shaped a lot of what I can do today. So right now I'm in contracts, and now anytime there's an escalation, I am able to speak with leadership with a confidence that I feel I probably would not have had if I hadn't worked with the CEO, vice president, etc., and just recognize that they're just people too. They have a lot of responsibility as well. So
I can go next. So I have kind of two. One is my second job post college was actually as an executive assistant to the founder of AccelerX, which was the first Certate single-use bioreactor. And I would say it was pivotal because it was a startup company. And even though I was in an executive assistant role, I quickly pivoted into the lab. And I think a startup is a really great opportunity for a lot of people because it was such a small company. You could learn across the entire org and have all sorts of different roles, from like working in the warehouse, working in the lab, working with the executive team. And I would also say that being an admin for an executive gives you a perspective with leadership that you might not have until much later in your career. And it helped me throughout my career. Whenever I was working with at the executive level, I wasn't intimidated because I know that they need help planning their trips, and they, they're just regular people too. So that was pivotal, and also very early in my career. And then I would say later in my career, kind of an aha moment was thinking of my career path as not just like a list of jobs and skills, and thinking of it more as the value that I bring to the organization and me as a whole person and my capabilities. And when you think of it in that light, it's much easier to think about different roles and different opportunities than maybe you would have thought of, and you widen that box you've built for yourself, to say I can go in all these other different directions because I have this value that I can bring. So that's what I would add to that for pivotal moments.
I'd say for me, when I was at Millipore, I worked in like a filter validation lab, and typically those filters would be like at the end of the process, for drug substance or drug product, and there's a whole new world that happens above, like upstream of that, right? And fortunately, I got a role at Accelerex, which was then acquired by GE, where it was like working with customers to do, small scale, scale up process development, scale up into, larger, up to 2,000 liter GMP batches. And I wasn't really responsible for the science, but I was responsible for managing the projects of the science. And so at that time, I learned a lot of different processes, a lot of like different cell lines, different manufacturing, techniques, different process steps. And so it really kind of opened it really boosted my resume, I think, something I wasn't really, that was what I was looking for, but I think I got a lot more out of it than I, thought I was going to. So it was a really good experience for me.
Can I add something to that? There are going to be times in your career when you would want to pivot to do something else, and it's totally okay. In the biotech world and biopharmaceutical world, we do see people changing roles like almost every 2 years because they want to gain new skills. So if you're the type of person who likes to be in a steady career path, you can do that as well, because there are definitely many different roles that cater to that. But there's also the opportunity of learning new things, even changing companies. So you'll learn that as well, is that sometimes that's helpful to your career growth as well. So don't be afraid of making the change. And I think talk to your mentors, talk to people, to get more information about the steps that you want to take.
Thank you, everybody. These have been really great answers. You have all kind of touched on some of the positions that you've held and some of the things that you've done in industry. And it kind of leads me to one of the other questions I have here. And that is, can you tell the students about any key emerging trends or areas within the biotech or biological sciences that new graduates should be paying more attention to? And the first thing that jumps out into my mind, and maybe Tayaba, you want to start, is that you had mentioned AI is very much a trend. If you could touch on how that is being implied in industry, that would be awesome.
Well, I'll tell students to look at Tempus AI and their model, because that's a company that's coming up really fast. And so data and digital is so powerful right now because, first of all, I will share this, data everywhere is really bad. So we're trying to clean up data, have better data to drive good outcomes for the patients. And that can span across, like, from drug discovery to commercial, like how can we better market the drugs, how do we do candidate selection. So AI is going to span this whole work stream. I would say whichever function that you're in, look up information of how AI is impacting. So say you want to be a scientist, you want to do cell line development, I would go and look at cell line development and what AI tools are there that are being used by different companies. Similarly, if you want to do data analytics, how is data analytics being used within the biopharmaceutical world and biotechnology world, and how they're incorporating AI now. So there are different platforms, like we have Microsoft Copilot, which our company uses. We also have our internal system, closed system that we built, because there's confidential and sensitive information that we don't want leaked to the open models. And nearly every application that we're using has some sort of AI built into it. It might not be good, but I think learn about prompt engineering. That is definitely going to be helpful, whether you're using ChatGPT or any of the other models. Prompt engineering is going to be very helpful for you.
Thank you. Amanda, Thomas, do you think, is there any emerging techniques that in your companies or any trends that you think that the students should be aware of?
So kind of in a different direction to answer that, the biotech field and certainly Cytiva, for a long time, the monoclonal antibodies have been, the king, and we're seeing a lot more different modalities emerging, especially, mRNA out of the COVID pandemic. The mRNA vaccines are really taking off. That's a popular modality that's developing, and you're hearing a lot about oligonucleotides and antibody drug conjugates, ADCs, also developing. So you're seeing these different modalities. So you're also, what comes with that is the scale of production is decreasing. You still have your large volume production as well. So it's kind of spanning the gamut. And then you're also, we've been hearing about it for 25 years now, but the individualized medicine, where they take your tumor and then they develop the antibodies for you. And I think that is becoming stronger, and the costs will go down, and we'll see more of that. Tom, I don't know if you want to add to any of that or take it in a new direction.
Yeah, no, I think you hit it like right on. Just two things to add is a couple of things that like Sartorius is looking at is like process intensification. So like how customers can manufacture at lower cost and get or achieve more output from a manufacturing process, and also continuous processing, right? So like there's like no downtime. A batch kind of just runs, and you'll have multiple bioreactors and just have them set up kind of continuously harvesting, and then you have a downstream that kind of continuously processes. So, it's able to kind of support, global demand, all different kind of requirements.
Yeah, and then QC and QA are impacted by that as well. So you don't have a start finish batch that you then do your QA and QC on. It's a different approach. So those teams also have to adapt.
Yeah. For sure.
And I will say, like, we will have some, trends, but the biotech and biopharmaceutical world changes on a week, like I would say on a daily basis. Something is coming out that is going to require us to adapt and change and be part of that. So when you're coming into this industry, keep that in mind, that one thing we say is change is constant.
Yeah, in fact, there's a lot of kind of new processes that don't even have regulatory requirements around them right now because they're still working through those. So there's a lot of companies out there that are just like on the cutting edge, and they're working with regulatory, experts to kind of define where these guidelines are. So it's constant change is right.
It's a really exciting field. It's just kind of, like you said, cutting edge. You never kind of know what the next step is going to be. It's very fun. Mm-hmm. I have 3 questions left, and I tried to save like the fun questions for the end here. So the first one that I have is, what is one piece of advice that you wish somebody would have whispered in your ear earlier on in your career? It's a tough one. Is it networking? Maybe you guys have all kind of hit up on the networking. Is it don't be afraid to pivot? Like maybe you've already told us here.
For sure, networking. I mean, you can't oversell networking. It is everything. So yeah, I'll take the easy one. Yeah, networking.
I really had to think for that one. And for me, I would say salary negotiation. So when you're going for interview and you're getting a position, it's important to know what your worth is and what you're bringing to the table and how to ask for promotions, because you could be doing a lot of the work. And so what I learned is like you document everything that you're doing, you show proofs, and you generally, if your manager is good enough, they'll keep an eye on that. But set your goals. So whenever you join a company, you usually set goals that align with your corporate initiatives or KPIs and metrics. So that I wish like I had somebody has whispered that early on.
That is an amazing piece of advice, and people hardly ever mention that. So thank you. I have a follow-up for you on that, though. That a lot of people feel intimidated to salary negotiate. They want the job. They don't feel like they can negotiate salary. Is there where did you find, that soft skill? Because it really is that soft skill. Or where would you tell a student to go to find somebody to help them build that soft skill?
Yeah. I'm still learning that soft skill and refining it. So
we all are.
So I think it's as recent as like a few months ago that I kind of stood up for myself and was like, hey, these are the numbers, these are the metrics, this is the amount of work that I'm doing, and the level I should be at. And like obviously my boss agreed and put me in for a promotion, but in the starting, I don't know what I could have done differently. So I think that's an advice that maybe we should all work to get. But I think standing up for yourself is never bad. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we talked about networking. I think that's probably something I wasn't so keen on earlier in my career, and I think I've realized how important it is as I've as the years have passed. I think also being confident that you have the expertise, you're the expert, and work with the customer, and stand up and take on those challenges, and don't be afraid to fail. Sometimes failure does happen, but it's all how you kind of pick up and move on, I think.
Yeah, I read something just yesterday that said, I'd rather walk through the wrong door than be stuck in the wrong room. And I've had an opportunity to talk to some of our executives at my company and ask them if they had any moves that they've made in their career that they regretted. And I remember one executive said to me, no, my only regret is I waited too long to make a move. So it's something to keep in mind.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Excellent advice. Thank you all. Nate, the next question that I have, 2 more, I promise, and then we're over. So the next question that I have is, how do you balance work-life commitments? Right? Especially you're all talking about being in a fast-paced, high-demand industry. Things are moving and on the go. So how do you find time to balance work-life?
That's really interesting. And I think it depends on the kind of position that you're in. When you sign up for a position, they usually tell you the commitment that's required. Other than that, you have to put up your boundaries. If you have children and at a certain time that you're done, you like our company is good enough that you can put a message like at 5, I'm done. I won't be checking any emails after that. We have this these are my work hours. You can message me through that. But it's you have to set your own boundaries, I think, at any workplace. And there are going to be times when you're required to work late. And that's the nature of our jobs. So sometimes you do work late, and just don't make it a habit if that's not the requirement of your job.
I'll add to that. I will block my calendar if I have a personal commitment that I need to focus on. I'll just put it right on my calendar, block it off. I will also work when the mood strikes. So I may log on at 9 p.m. or on a weekend to do something. And it's for me, that's my choice. I'm not being told to do it, because if they told me to do it, then I wouldn't want to do it. But luckily, at this point in my career, I have the flexibility to really manage my schedule for the most part, aside from meetings and things that are occurring. But there were definitely times earlier in my career where that balance was a little bit thrown off. So you just have to kind of pay attention to that and set those boundaries, like Tayaba said.
Yeah. I think it also helps to have understanding managers, right? Like everyone has things going on in their lives, and be able to have a conversation, be like, hey, I need to do X, Y, Z, and have them give you that flexibility to do so.
Great answers. Okay, my last question here. What has been your favorite aspect of your career? And Amanda, I'm going to start with you because I always toss this one at you, and I ask you because Amanda gets to travel. She just got back from Europe. She was in Asia. Like, she gets to travel, and so I know that's my favorite aspect of your career. But what is your favorite aspect of your career? All of you.
It's so funny that you said that because I don't think that would have even occurred to me. It's always been my colleagues, the people I get to work with. That's been my favorite thing. And I would also say that when I was managing GMP manufacturing projects, that was also one of my highlights because you were working on a drug that was going directly into patients. So you felt really connected to the patient that was going to have an outcome based on the work that you were doing. So those two factors, the team that you're working with is so important. You spend so much time with them, and their success is your success. So that's my number one.
Yeah, I will also say, like, the number one thing is the scientists that I work with, the amazing amount of knowledge that they have and they're willing to share. That's one of my, like, that's the highlight of my day anytime I get to talk to a scientist. And I think, like, within your position, there comes a time when you feel like you've learned all that you can. If you've learned this is an insight that I gained, that if you've learned 90 to 95% of everything in your role, it's time to make a switch, because that 5% is not gonna make you grow that much unless it's like a significant aspect of it. But generally, the rule has been, like, if you feel like you've learned 90% and can do that job really well, it's time to move on. And I'm still, I feel like, early on in my career, so I have a long way to go. So looking forward to growing up.
And I'd have to agree with Amanda. I think working with the team, I travel a bit as well. So I work with people, virtually, and I look forward to going to wherever they're located, and putting a face with the name, or like 3D, So it's that's probably one of the best things of the career.
Those are great answers, and I'm glad that you all found a place that feels so nice to go to work. I feel like if you really like where you work and what you do, then you don't ever really work a day in your life. And it sounds like you've all kind of found that same niche, and so that's just wonderful. So we have a few minutes. We got 15 minutes left. Dr. Avalon, you had said that we usually turn this over to students who have any questions. Does anybody have any questions for our speakers?
Quiet group today. Well, I just want to thank you all so much for sharing your stories. I think regardless of the discipline, there's so many similarities that we heard in terms of the importance of networking and the reappearance of colleagues from one job to another job to another job, and also really how small of a world it is in terms of, starting at one position and, having a company in similarity with a fellow panelist on this, which is truly a small world. And Dawn, I just want to thank you so much for hosting. I know you are not feeling well and you are such a trooper. Thank you so much. But I truly loved hearing, like, just the stories, especially the importance of Amanda was talking about, like, the work-life balance, trying to figure out something that works for you. I know, Amanda, I'll get like a burst of energy at like 5 o'clock in the morning. And that's sometimes the best time for me to work. I know, especially when my children were little, it was great because I had the quiet, peaceful house to myself. And so I completely understand when you said that. But again, that's something that I would choose to do. So a lot of the points that everyone made just really resonated with me, and so many of the other disciplines that we've all probably had the opportunity to work in. And I know for many of the students that are online right now, or for the students that were going to listen to this, you will definitely find something that resonates with you as well. So
well said. Thank you, everybody.
So if there's any questions, last words. All right, then thank you so much for your time. This has been a wonderful panel discussion. I wish you all a wonderful holiday season, and hopefully all get to enjoy that time of rest and relaxation, and a chance to also disconnect. So thank you so much for participating in this Mentorship Matters series hosted by the Lowell Institute School.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
Thanks
you.
for
Have a
having
good
us.
day.
Thank you.
Happy holidays.
Thank you,
There was a
everybody.
question. Oops, there was. Thought I saw a question, but maybe not.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No, you
I'm
did.
I
sorry.
do see it.
Okay. It says, what strategies does your company use to ensure everyone feels valued and heard regardless of their background? You guys
So our
wanna-
company hosts town halls, and we have an open door policy as well, where you can go and speak with everybody. And it's so funny when you walk into our building, it actually says, I feel empowered to speak up. And
Mm,
it's not that I'm frightened to speak up, I am right to speak up. So there's a lot of opportunities to speak up, but I will say that there are politics in every corporation and every industry. So it's just learning how to navigate those, because there are certain times our perception is what it is for a certain situation. So I would say always talk it out with somebody you trust. Yeah.
great. Thank you for that.
And
Amanda?
I'll add from Cytiva, they do engagement surveys. They're doing those quarterly now, so you can provide feedback anonymously. There's also a number of employee resource groups. So I mentioned the Women's Network that I'm a co-leader of, but we also have like Black and Friends, there's a Hispanic Forum, there's a Disability Network. So they have different employee resource groups that are open to everybody, but they're geared towards different like subsets of the population so that everybody has a safe space where they feel included. So I do think that the company does a lot to try to bring that feeling of being included across the org.
Yeah, I think Sartorius has a similar program for DEIB. There's always events going on, whether it's veterans or LGBTQ. They're very active with trying to bring, kind of community involvement with those groups or, the employees. So there's definitely a push for that.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing. Oops. Trying to read here and I don't have my glasses on, so I'm sorry. Let me see, there's not much I want to thank questions, but I want to thank Amanda for great tips regarding. Okay, so this is a thank you email. Oh, thank you so much. So Alexander put a nice thank you note in the chat box so we can all read. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. I know this is a busy time for us all, so I really, truly thank you so much for volunteering to share this information and to really kind of give back to students who are trying to figure out what the best path in their life is, or more importantly, if they're in the industry, how to grow and continue on. So, well, thank you all and happy holidays and stay safe. Bye-bye.
Thank you so
too.
much.
Happy holidays.
Thank you, everybody.